I decided to Quentin Tarantino this before and after video. So this is about a week and a half after I've installed the cycle stop valve, and I'm really happy with it. It has solved all of my plumbing issues, surprisingly. Before, we could only take one hot shower at a time. If somebody got in a second shower, whoever was furthest from the water heaters, I would only get a lukewarm shower. So because of that, to get hot water to the furthest shower, I had installed this boost pump. I no longer have it plugged in. The boost pump was programmed to come on when somebody got into the master shower, and we haven't used it in a week and a half. So by keeping the pressure closer to 80, we are now able to get hot showers in all three showers. Something that we had an issue with before, which wasn't a big deal, is if we were filling a bathtub, we would not get any hot water, not even lukewarm water, in our kitchen. Now we get hot water like it's totally normal. So we're filling a bathtub, and we still get hot water at our kitchen faucet, which we never had before. As far as amp drop, that drops about 10%, maybe 15% at the most. And right now I have, just for demonstration purposes, 2 showers running and a faucet running. The pressure looks like it's holding at about 72, and it's working great. So we're real happy with how the cycle stop valve is improving the hot water availability in our house, and just the pressure all around. So I highly recommend, if you have a well and you set it to 60 to 80 psi and you're still not happy with the water flow, that you look into using this valve. I wish I had found it a year and a half ago when we were dealing with all these issues. But we feel like we finally got it solved, so highly recommend. This is the CSV1A, which I've just put the plugs into and my adapter fittings that I will install out at the well. There's a lot of discussion about amp drop as the pump produces more pressure. My system is a 64-gallon pressure tank, and I have the switch set to come on around 55 psi and then turn the pump off at 80 psi. So right now I have the circuit breaker turned off, so that when I turn it on, the pump should kick on. You can hear my water heater there. The pump should kick on, and then we'll get the amp draw as the tank fills here. The well is about 250 feet deep, and easily pumps to 80 psi. It takes it about a minute and 20 seconds to go from 50 or 55 psi to 80 psi. All right, let's kick the pump on and see what we get. Okay, I just turned the breaker back on. We're getting 9 amps. You can see the tank pressure building in the tank, in the system. There's the green run light for the pump. We're at 60 psi, and you can see the amperage has dropped below 9. My primary reason for installing the cycle stop valve is to keep the pressure up during showers. We have 3/4 inch PEX installed in this house, and unfortunately the pressure doesn't allow for more than one shower at a time unless the pressure is above about 60 psi. So we're almost to 80, and the amperage has dropped slightly. Okay, one other concern that I had, actually it's the only concern that I really had, I'm not really concerned with the amperage, is the drop in water flow after the install of the cycle stop valve. So I'm going to run the hose here. It's a large diameter hose. It comes through a 1-inch pipe, so there's not really any flow restriction from the pump to this hose spigot. It just runs under the ground, tees off before it even gets to the house. So let's test the water flow from this and see what we get. See how quickly we can fill a 5-gallon bucket. Alright, so that was about 23 seconds. I'll double check that when I edit the video. We can, now that it's been flowing and the pressure's dropped in the tank, we can do one more. Okay. So this is max well pump flow. Yeah, so about 23 seconds again to fill a 5-gallon bucket. Okay, holding right at about 40. And then one last thing I did is I just kicked on the amp meter, and it's drawing 9.1 amps with full flow, right around 39 psi now. Okay, so as this tank refilled, I wanted to see if we got the same amperage draw, and oddly enough, as the pump has been running to refill this tank from about 40 psi, the amperage has dropped. You can see my light's losing battery, but it's down to 8.2. Turn that light back on. Kind of jumping around a little bit, but down to 8.2 when it's been running for quite a while, 5 or 10 minutes. And here you go. It kicked off just above 80 that time. It seems to kick off around 79 to 81. All right, it is day 2 of the installation here. I installed the CSV1A yesterday afternoon. I let these connections dry fairly well. We got some condensation, just cold water coming out of here. It comes out at about 60 degrees, so we get some condensation on everything. The valve here is set to about 76. I had it at 78 psi yesterday, and occasionally my pump was still kicking off. So I went ahead and set it to 76. It seems like even at 76 psi, it's only taking about 30 seconds for the switch to kick off after I close the water at the sink. So I might end up even turning it down a couple more. So let's go inside and see what the amp draw is. As you can see, it's a fairly old well. It's a 50-year-old well, roughly, about 250 feet deep. There's a new pump in there. The pump's about 2 years old. And it's 1-inch pipe coming out of the well. The pump just kicked on, which was good timing. And at 55 psi, we're at 8.8 millimeter. I've timed this a couple times with no water running. It takes about 1 minute and 30 seconds for the pump to fill the pressure tank, where before it was about 1:20. So pretty close, which is to be expected. A little bit slower water flow as it gets closer to 80 psi. Passing 65, and it's at 8.5. I do have about 2 gallons per minute flowing out of a faucet, which is how you set up the cycle stop valve. So we should see it level off around 76 psi, and then that amperage should drop as that back pressure is built behind the valve, or in front of the valve. So there's 70 psi and 8.3. The only thing running right now is a faucet at about 2 gallons per minute. As it gets closer to that setting, the PSI definitely climbs slower, and as it builds that back pressure, the amperage is dropping. So we're at 8.1. There's 8 amps and 75 psi. Now in theory, hopefully, the pump will continue to run as long as more than 1 gallon per minute is running in the house. So the pump is still running. We're down to 7.9 amps. And we're up to 77 psi. So the idea is when you take a shower, the pump will stay around 78, 76, 78 psi until all of the water is turned off in the house, or at least slower flow, and then the pump will kick off when it reaches this switch here. So I have been adjusting the switch, trying to get it as close to 80 psi as I can for the cutoff. We're down to almost 7.8, and I think we've leveled off at 78, which is good. And the pump will just run like this again until the water is turned off. So let's go turn the water off and see how long it takes for this pump to shut off. And it just cut off. So it didn't take very long at all. After you shut the water off with the PSI at 78, it gets to 80 PSI pretty quick. The instructions say that it should run about 2 minutes, so I may turn the pressure switch up slightly, or I may turn the cycle stop valve down slightly, but I'll keep fine-tuning it. And then the last test is the bucket test to see if the water flow has changed. Let's say it's still right at 23, 24 seconds. For this 5-gallon bucket. I'll do it one more time. Yeah, if it's slowed, it's only slowed by a second or two, which is really good. Let's go inside and see what the pressure says. Okay, amperage is about 8.8, and the PSI is about 39. All right, now that we know that we've got all of the pressure, extra pressure out of the tank, let's go test the water flow one more time. Okay, this hose has been running for a little while here, maybe 10 minutes or so while we've been doing these tests. Let's check the flow one more time here. About 30 seconds on that. So we went from being able to fill 5 gallons in 23 seconds to about 30 seconds. That's max flow for the pump now that the cycle stop valve is creating friction in that line. Okay, I've turned the pump off, the hose off. Turned the hose off 1 minute ago, and so now the pressure tank here is refilling. We're at 8.3 amps and 44 psi. So we give you an idea of how quickly this is able to refill with the cycle stop valve. There's 60 psi and 7.7 amps. Pump is still running. And my pump saver is saying we are out of water, so that explains why we are not refilling as quickly as it normally should. So I think that's the end of this test. Alright, I wanted to show a real-life example of how the system works when a shower is being taken. So right now we've got a shower that claims to use about 5 gallons per minute. The pump is running. We're getting about 8.1 amps. And it's holding right at around 77 psi. So normally this would cycle the pump on and off, and so we would go up to 80 psi and then down to 55 psi, and that would just go on as long as showers were being taken. But with the cycle stop valve, the pump stays on. You don't get those high draw starts. With this pump, about 32 amps, and that should save the life of the pump. But most important to me, provide for high pressure to the showers. So we're filling up the bathtub. The faucet at the bathtub is definitely our highest flow inside the house. We got 8.4 amps, and the pressure remains steady at about 69 as the tub fills. This is the pump running with 2 showers going. You can see it holds at about 75, 76. And as that back pressure is building, it's drawing about 7.9 amps.